Hi, you tuned into the Creative Life Podcast, the place where creatives go for inspiration. My name is Jessica. I'm a creative coach and the host of this show. Joining me today is co-host Dr. Jacqueline Gibbons, and we are debriefing our episode with Haley Harrer. So, Dr. Gibbons, can you give us a brief summary of Haley Harrer for our viewers? Maybe they're just now tuning in. They should definitely watch last week's episode, but in case they haven't, tell us a little bit about our creative Haley.
Yes, our time with Haley was so interesting and unique because she has always loved painting, and she evolved this into becoming the owner and operator of True Colors Face Painting and Body Art, where she will work with children's parties or, adult events, weddings, community events, things of that sort. And so we got to speak with her about how she has allowed her art to evolve and turn it into a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for giving us that summary. And I think that it's really amazing to have an individual like Haley on our show. One, she is a small business owner, but she's also a woman-owned business as well. And she has this really interesting perspective in that she's always felt creative all of her life. And she saw an opening in the market. As she mentioned, she would go to events and she would say, there should be face painting here. Why isn't there a face painter here? And she just kept asking herself that question. And this question became this nagging, well, why don't you fill the gap? You're a creative person. You like doing these things. Can't you fill that gap? And it's just so beautiful to be able to talk to a creative like that, because perhaps we have creatives at home that have their own gaps that they're looking at and they're thinking, someone should write a book about that from this perspective. How come no one's taken this book topic from this perspective before? Or how come no one's written about this song, but they've written it in this way? Or how come no one's written this type of poem before with these types of emotions or themes coming together? And being a creative, sometimes it's that. You see these gaps and they come to you and you say, well, perhaps I will fill that gap. So it was really exciting to see how she was able to let that nagging sensation, that question that kept burning at her, help her create a business. Like, wow.
Yes, and
amazing.
It seemed to come very naturally to her. She just kept running into places and events where a service that she could provide, something that she loves to do, wasn't there. And to be able to take what you love and to have an income, I think that's what everyone hopes for.
Absolutely. And it was really funny. So if you have seen last week's episode, or if you're going to watch it or watch it again, it was kind of funny because during it, you started doing a little bit of coaching. You're like, well, if you were to do this and this. And so our viewers there's different types of coaching. There's a whole spectrum of coaching. Sure. So there's coaching where it's more supportive or nurturing, but then there's also coaching where you're more directive. Like, okay, you have this idea, you're kind of patchworking it together for them. You're pitching ideas, you're becoming a mirror back to them. So it's, again, there is a whole spectrum when it comes to coaching, but it was really funny because you're starting to think, well, you can do this and this and this, and then I would buy it. But isn't it contagious sometimes when you're around a creative person and you just see the potential within them and you see that, wow, they are just at the cusp of it. They may think that they've broken it, but really they're just at the cusp of it. And you can just see that. And as a coach, you get really excited. And then, so I saw you bubbling up over there. And I was like, oh, Dr. Gibbons bubbling. But that's what happens sometimes. You just get that from that person and you can just see inside of them and you can say, oh, you have it. You have something special. So I saw that moment happening with you.
Well, I was also going to meet some of my shopping list needs.
Absolutely.
If she were able to provide these additional services. But you were saying there was something about her. She had this energy. She had already referenced that every face is a different canvas and a different opportunity, and she could do a unicorn 100 different ways. Her art is always evolving. And so sensing that energy, that she just seems very open to all the possibilities of where her creative gifts can take her. And that's one of those things, you're just saying on the cusp, and you can feel that with her.
Absolutely. And then when you're building a business and you're scaling, so the difference between, and you will also see this in the interview too, that there are sometimes when I might segment the creative side and the business side. So having your support network within your creative side is very important, but also having your support network within your business side is equally important too. Because we started to touch a little bit on the lulls. We didn't really get that deep into it, but we did talk about what she did during the downtime, such as working on her social media, thinking of other ways to scale her business as well. But I will say that, financial changes do come. They can come in waves. So if you are creative and you are thinking about monetizing your craft, I think that it would behoove you to understand what that truly means. So she did talk about research. And then in our community, we do have organizations that help with business development and research. And of course, like getting you a coach as well. You can have a business coach too. They're not just creative coaches, there's also business coaches. So I do want to call that out for our audience, that if you are thinking about moving into monetization, really think about, one, your creative cusp, like where can I go? Where can I expand with my creativity? But then also think about my business, how can I scale? What is my market? What is my niche? She identified her niche. She knows exactly who her demographic is. And she is scaling with her demographic in mind. So if you thought about some of the things that she was adding on, they were within that market as well. So
Right.
I appreciated that.
Yes. And something that she had stated, and then I think of this when we're talking about network, she said, be around the people who you want to be. And if you are a painter, or if you're a speaker, or a dancer, who do you want to be like? Who is someone that you admire their craft, and you also maybe admire their branding? How are they communicating their authenticity? And success leaves clues. You don't have to recreate the wheel. See what others are doing, those who you want to be, but your own version, of course, and reach out to them. See or become part of that community. Perhaps they have their own Facebook group following, and that right there is a community in and of itself, which can, one, help fuel that kind of creative spirit, but also get some of that business know-how. But then again, at the same time, like you said, creativity can be someone's real muscle power, but we'll need to seek a business coach, perhaps, depending on their needs and to what extent they want to scale.
Absolutely. So I want to get in just a little bit deeper, because you started to touch on this a little bit, and I believe it's the element of mentorship. So I thought she said was surround yourself around people who you want to be. That was really powerful. Absolutely. But you've taken it a little bit further, and you've also talked about, okay, there are trails to success. Like you can see, like, okay, how did that person get there? What was the strategy that they used? But there's also in community, there's mentorship. So let's talk about mentorship when it comes to the creative process, mentorship when it comes to trying to do something that you've never done before. So for example, for those that are trying to branch out and publish that book, they've never done it before. For those that are trying to get that song and just sing it on stage and they've never done it before, what does mentorship look like for the creative?
Well, I think mentorship, a great deal of it depends on kind of that interpersonal, is it a good match? Our previous guest, James, when we talked about coaching, for different things. There can be amazing coaches, but sometimes it's just not a good match. And that can be the case with mentors as well. So when in a mentoring relationship, understanding that you should leave, well, in the time together, the questions and the conversation are thought-provoking. It takes you to spaces and ways that you never previously considered. But also, when you leave, you're leaving with ideas. You're leaving with inspiration. You're leaving understanding that you have more possibility than you thought you had when you first went in. And for some, developing a mentoring relationship, it could just be meeting a person one time. You understand that this was more of an informational meeting, not necessarily a growth partnership, and that's okay. Sometimes you'll meet several people, and then sometimes it's just someone who clicks. And sometimes, let's say Haley were to find a mentor who has an expanded face painting and body art business. And she was able to have mentoring with them, perhaps from a social media development perspective or from a business building perspective, but not necessarily in the aspect of creativity. We all have our own strengths, and we all have a match with people on different things. Energies are different with different areas of expertise. So I think there are many options to consider, but knowing that every conversation you go into, you can step away with something. You can always walk away with a nugget, even if that person doesn't turn into a mentor or a longstanding partnership.
Absolutely. What you're really getting at is strategic mentorship. So it's not just, oh, let me go find a mentor, anyone out there. One of the things you said is like, okay, social media. Who out there is really good at social media? Who can I learn from? Even if it's just one engagement, I'm going in, I have my questions, I understand what their strengths are, and I know what my goal is within that meeting. And then I'm walking away, like you said, I'm walking away refreshed, I have new wisdom, new inspiration. And then maybe I do need a mentor with creativity. So I'm going to find someone that has that mastery within that space that I seek to master as well. And I think that's really important, because sometimes we can go look for mentors and you might find someone who's very popular. I'm like, oh, that person's so popular, I just want them to be my mentor. But they might not be that great of a mentor. So like you said, the energy matching with that person. So interviewing a person, asking them, okay, would you be open to be my mentor? What would a mentorship dynamic look like with you? And then I believe in reciprocity. I believe that you should always give more than you receive back. And so it's, how can I as a mentee give back to you? Because there may be something that they're lacking that you have. And then sometimes it's also just relationship. I have met some people within my career that are exiting out of theirs, and they just want someone to knowledge share with. They want someone to know that, okay, I had a part in that person's career trajectory, and it's a known part, and like that's part of my legacy. Also you can say, how are you doing your legacy building? That's important too when you're thinking about being a creative. And I like something else Haley also said about competition. Now, I'm going to do two hats to this for you, Dr. Jacqueline Gibbons. And that competition in and of itself, within creative spaces, we have competitions naturally. There's poetry competitions. We're actually going to have on our next episode a poet who's an award-winning poet. So I'm so excited to have her. And the thing is that with art, it's inherently competitive. However, your attitude towards other artists don't have to be competitive. So can you unpack that with Haley and talk about the differences between being competitive within your craft and being non-competitive with those that share your craft?
I think I love that question. When I think of competitive within the creatives, I I think specifically auditions. You know, if you're auditioning for a particular role, there's definitely competition there. Even if you're in the space of, like Haley with the painting and the body art, someone who's seeking services could select you or someone else. So in that sense, it's competitive. However, just as mentorship has, people have different energies with different things, if you're bringing your own authenticity, then actually you versus this other person isn't necessarily a competition, rather as who meets the needs of what that individual wants. And if that's not a match, then it's in your best interest to be with a client where there is a better match. Something that we had referenced in a previous episode was, say someone is auditioning for a role, and it's not that you weren't good, it's that you weren't part of the vision of that director. However, you now have that exposure, and that can lead to other opportunities. So let's say if we have our previous guest, Haley, and another provider, and the client goes with the other provider, that still can open up other opportunities because she's open to that relationship, that partnership, that mutual respect, and understanding that they have similar crafts, but their own crafts.
Absolutely. And I think what you're drawing out is, one, there's space for everyone. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that because scarcity is far more lucrative than just having this idea that there's bountiful roles, there's bountiful events, there's just this overwhelming amount that's out there. But truly what she says is that sometimes there are too many events, and they're actually giving each other events as well. They're actually giving each other opportunities. But what that does is it makes their community stronger. So we talked briefly about the lulls. And then in business, there's inherent volatility as well. But when you're in an environment and where everybody is, one, they're not in a competition with each other. They are within their craft, and they understand that there'll always be people that are hyper competitive. I mean, they just exist. But within those in your community that you have created, that you have a healthy community and bond with, if you are creating this cycle of always giving back, then no one has lack. And that is really important. And you can do that in multiple circles. So for example, with our band, Virgin Mary Pistol Grip,
Virgin Mary Pistol Grip.
And they were talking about the band that they were opening up for, just the exposure of opening up for a mainstream band. And when I think about musicians, they have that power to do that. You have the power to open up your audience to someone else. And that doesn't take away from you. Like, trust me, they're still going to buy your t-shirt or whatever merch you have out there. But now what you've done is that you've opened their eyes up to someone else. And it's like you're vouching for them. It's like, hey, this is someone we think is cool for you to listen to. This is someone else that we think you should support. Once again, it doesn't take away from them because that person, they literally came to the show for you. But now they're walking away with so much more. Right. And I think that if creatives were to truly grasp that concept, then we would understand that the necessary competitive element of it, because you have to have that competitive element of it, that it doesn't have to stop you, but it can also propel you. And so I think that she was getting at that a little bit, and then you dig into that a little bit more as well. So if you're ever in a situation as a creative where you're kind of like, you're in that weird emotional place of, I don't know if they like me, or there's just too many people out there that are like me. There's too many people that have my resume. What you just said is like, go into your authentic self. Like, get out of the competitive area, get out of that mindset. It's draining you. Get into your authentic self, because there's only something that you can bring. And maybe that event wants a very specific offering, and maybe you don't have it, but perhaps the next event does have that. Maybe that role has a very specific fit for it. You may not have it, but the next one has it. That band wants a very specific sound for its opening. Perhaps you don't have it, but the next one has it. So you still have that authentic marker that makes you, that still allows you to go further with your craft.
Right. And I'm thinking when, Haley had shared that there were other creatives who had shared opportunities with her because they were already booked. Now, if she's in that same situation, she could make the choice to say, I'm not going to tell anyone because I don't want to lose this person as a potential client or customer. However, she instead views it as an opportunity to provide a platform for someone else. And you never know to what extent that hand up can do for someone. And I believe things come full circle. So I believe that if you have that respect for the person's work and you are genuine in either promoting them or suggesting them, you never know what situation they're in and what an impact that can make. But then also, it will return.
Absolutely.
I believe.
Absolutely. And when we asked her, like, hey, how can we help support small businesses? One of the things she actually offered, which was non-monetary, was support, was opening up your network, saying, okay, here are your platforms. Like most people have a type of platform. Now, I'm not going to make the assumption that everybody has social media because there are those that just choose not to have it, and that's totally okay. But you still have a network. You have the people at your work, in your community, where you serve, your neighbors. You have a network, your family. So like she said, people would grab my card and they would give my card out. It doesn't always have to be virtual, although virtual does help, but it can also be that face-to-face, that word of mouth that also helps so much.
Right.
And so as you're saying is that we have an impact. And we can make an impact in the lives of others. And so as we are creatives and we're moving forward and we're trying to just make a valuable contribution to the world, we're trying to give something to the world, we can also give a hand up because it's not a handout. It definitely takes action. And we can say, hey, by the way, have you considered such and such? Have you considered this work of art? Have you considered this person? And it doesn't take that much, but it means a lot.
It certainly does. Just as in the credits of our shows, we provide the contact information and the social media handles that our guests have. And what a great gift for Haley or for any of our guests that if you view those, and maybe it's not necessarily a service that you need, but you're able to visit their site and give them a like, or someone who may need something along those lines upcoming, or someone they should maybe consider, and that can be passed along, and that can make a huge impact for creatives who have their own business.
Absolutely. It definitely can. I love that you pointed that out because we do share their information and we share that for a reason because we want you to follow them too. Of course, we want you to like us and share us and subscribe. We want all of those things, but we really do want you to enjoy our creatives as much as we've enjoyed our creatives because I don't know how, but we just keep getting some really good gems in here. We just meet people and it's just so interesting just to peel back the layers and just to see who they are and how they've come into the space that they are. So along the lines of our episode with Haley Harrer, we talked about small businesses and why small businesses matter. So can you tell me why creative small businesses matter to you?
Creative small businesses matter to me because I have such appreciation for someone's gift. When she said water painting, I could not even do a stick person in water paint. And I admire that. And it's something that I can look at and enjoy. There are, musicians or people in theater or that I go to see or I choose to enjoy because I am in awe of what they can do. And sometimes maybe it is a creative aspect where I'm involved, but I'm looking for inspiration. I want those jaw-dropping moments, So I love supporting them, one, just for the admiration of the talent. But also, I know that I'm getting something authentic. What I'm getting here, whether it's an item or it's an experience, I'm connected to this. And I'm drawn in by this. This wasn't, I picked this toilet paper as the best price, This is meaningful to me. This struck a chord with me. But then also when we're talking about on a community level, and we touched on that with Haley here, and just what it means to the community. One, feeding economics, but also others being able to see that as well. When she works with the children and them being able to see her art and creating that job out of joy.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Gibbons, it's been wonderful debriefing with you today. So for those of you at home, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And remember, we are the Creative Life Podcast, the place where creatives go for inspiration. And you can find us on streaming platforms. And we would love to hear from you and how this episode touched you in your creative spaces. So once again, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.